This is America's Mayor live from Astana, Kazakhstan. And we are here on a very momentous evening, possibly one might say a historic evening, in which, as we speak, Israel is engaged in yet another strike, but this time an all out attack on the city of Tehran, uh, which they promised to do if Iran continually, as they have over the last 5 days, focused on civilian targets. Up until now, it's largely been Israel doing a uh, much better than expected job of cleaning out the military installations, the upper command of the military, some of the most important militaristic terrorist leaders, the scientists who build the horrible nuclear weapons, and the facilities. Uh, they went back for a second, maybe even a third day to Natanz, which they have seemed to have destroyed completely. They've destroyed other uh, nuclear enrichment facilities. I haven't heard as much about the destruction of the missiles that are intended for the delivery of nuclear weapons, the missiles that they were expanding in the Semdan Desert. I'm certain that has happened too. They've decimated Iran's military infrastructure of all different kinds. There you can see a map of Iran, and you see that they have hit far and wide, all the way up to the north western part of Iran, which is close to Turkey, all the way down in the southern part of Iran. Uh, there is one major a target left that would require and only could possibly get done repeated, massive, continual attacks by the Israeli Air Force, maybe even ground troops, to disable the Fordow uh, uh, facility, which is pretty darn close to Tehran and not too far from the Natanz. That's because the bombs, not so much the bombs, the uranium that's being enriched is so deeply, and we don't know even how far into the ground. To counter that, we have, without doubt, the most effective, the most lethal, the most penetrating bunker buster bomb in the world that actually had to have a special aircraft or several built in order to deliver it. It is a complex airplane to fly. It's a complex mission to undertake. Not so much because it's a big target. It is. It still is a very elusive aircraft, hard to hit. Um, I don't know that we've used it. We probably have used it, but not for the purpose of this very special GPU bomb that we use. That seems to go down to China. Um, Now that is the weapon that those who would like to see a quick end to this war are begging President Trump to use, because if he would have hit Fordow with that, probably more than once, he would have accomplished taking out all of the uranium enrichment facilities presently available to the Reign of Terror. And who knows, we'll find out afterwards, a great many of their delivery systems. That would set them back, I will say conservatively, 8 to 10 years in a nuclear program. But even more importantly than that, that's a couple of $1 trillion to redo that. And with a country that is close to bankruptcy, and that also, takes half the money that it gets and gives it to Hamas, Hezbollah, and other uh, Islamic terrorist groups, big and small, including some in the United States. Uh, that's what's on the table right now. The meetings that the president came back for was probably to be briefed on this now massive Israeli offensive, which, if we weren't talking about these bunker buster bombs, would be quite impressive on its own. Um, and one designed to um, really crush the regime. I think it's hard to say that this bombing doesn't have two purposes. One, of course, is to take away from an insane maniac atomic weapons, but the other is to effectuate a regime change, because peace in the Middle East, if not in the world, but certainly in the Middle East, is impossible to achieve so long as the Islamic Republic of Iran continues to exist as the single largest state sponsor of terrorism. Now, if I say to my friends, uh, who are as dedicated to President Trump as I am, and I don't say that lightly. Um, this is America first. Maybe you don't agree with me that when you have an ally as strong as Israel, or the ones that we have in NATO, despite the differences we may have, and we have very few with Israel, but even with some in NATO, we have to come to their defense, because the objective of all of this is to have hostile forces take over the world. You cannot live in a ivory tower the way we accuse the left wing of doing that, and not take Xi Jinping seriously when he says he wants to take over the world. You have to notice his affinity toward China and Russia, and that much like Iran used Hezbollah and Hamas, and now the Houthis and Syria to do their dirty work, China, as often as it can, will use others to do their dirty work. Right now, Iran. They'll eventually abandon Iran, maybe even destroy it, who knows? But they'll use it in order to destabilize the United States, to make us even more amoral and disunified than they've already done. And that the history of the last century taught us that we have to confront absolute evil early and often, and then we avoid impossible situations to deal with. It's a simplistic statement to say, if you don't learn from history, you repeat it. But it's damn true, isn't it? Because human behavior doesn't change that much. And as our great founding fathers said, if men were angels, we wouldn't need government. Well, of course, in a time in which we had a vast ocean separating us from Europe, it was perfectly reasonable for George Washington to say, don't get involved in foreign entanglements. We had an ocean to protect us. But even with that, a otherwise isolationist president, Thomas Jefferson, developed the United States Marines in order to go fight in the halls of Montezuma and the shores of Tripoli, because they were the terrorists of that day, the pirates, were exacting tribute from our naval vessels and making it impossible for us to travel the world. We cannot live even then, behind Fortress America, we tried and we were invaded by England, the War of 1812. The oceans did give us a degree of protection for a long, long time. We were protected against, we had our own wars. We had the Mexican War. We had the wars with the Native Americans. We had, of course, our most catastrophic war, a war over slavery. And when they tell you that wasn't a war over slavery, I always ask you to please read the Declaration of Secession of the state of South Carolina, which apparently Governor Nikki Hawley didn't read, because when she was asked whether slavery was the cause of the Civil War, she didn't seem to know. But that to this day is our worst war. And then we had some smaller encounters again with Mexico. And then, of course, the First and Second World Wars. It would, the First War, hard to see how we would have gotten involved in that if we didn't get involved in it to save Europe. And given our desire to be a trading nation and to have a peaceful world, you could justify or not our involvement in that war. That's a historic argument that would be worth pursuing both sides of, because I'm not as expert on the First World War as I am, let's say, on the Civil War or the Second World War. I don't know why. I think it's true of many of us. I have many friends that are real buffs for the Civil War or the Second World War, and they can tell you everything about it. And the First World War, I'm not even sure they remember it happened. That may be a good study for, maybe America shouldn't have been involved. I don't know. I'm throwing that out as an opinion. That is not necessarily my opinion. The Second World War, there's no question we had to be involved in that. There's no question we had to be involved in it. And I should have been involved in it earlier. By that time, the world had become too close a place for us to avoid that kind of massive evil, and an evil empire taking over the nations from whence we all came and leaving us isolated in a world of Nazi and communist dictators. And even the seas now had become still a protection, but somewhat less so. You know, the submarines found off the shores of both Florida and New York, it was still very remote, and we were very well protected. And then when you get into the Cold War, the advent of the atomic bomb, still protected to some extent by the oceans because of the great length of time it would take to come here. And now with that shrinking, this is not what happens in North Korea affects us in the United States. Maybe we would like it not to. Maybe, like the liberals, live in a ivory tower and have no idea what happens when they spend ridiculously obscene huge amounts of money thinking the money falls from trees. Maybe we have conservatives who don't realize that we are now vulnerable to attack of a very serious nature from those all over the world. And we have to be acutely aware of that and prepared for it to protect our people. I mean, it's silly to say, for example, that the war in Israel doesn't concern us. The protagonists in that war tell us it concerns us. How often do we hear death to Israel, death to America? How many terrorist cells, which is just an extension of their army, really, are now in the United States? So that if they prevail and end up with much more of a headquarters in Europe or Asia, uh, we're going to be subjected to an enormous amount of violence. And how many lives have we already lost to Islamic terrorism? And what embodies Islamic terrorism more than the Islamic State of Iran, which is dedicated, no fooling, no fairy tale, to the destruction of America, the great Satan. Eventually, we're going to go to war with them. We're either going to do it early or when it's much later and much more difficult, like we did with Germany. We should have gone to war with them when they took hostages. They should never have been allowed to continue after that. It's a failure that some great historian over the course of any number of administrations from Carter through Biden has to question. They couldn't have been clearer that they wanted to destroy us, and we couldn't be clearer that we wanted to make nice with them, to the extent that we were one of their biggest financiers. So President Trump made the point about those people now within the MAGA movement who say America first, and we can easily define America first means we shouldn't be involved in Israel. I think the president said that he started the MAGA movement. It's his movement, and he decides what is America first and what isn't. This isn't like the MAGA movement is not a democratic organization. We follow a leader in that movement, and it's the wisdom of that leader that has brought us together. And we can have different opinions, and we can try to persuade our leader of our opinion. But once he makes up his mind, there's no reason not to follow him. And here he has been extremely deliberative in making up his mind. At times, of course, now I have a different view of it. I've become impatient with waiting so long. I understand it. I understand the politics of it. I understand the wisdom of it. But the Ayatollah now has made his own bed. I don't know what expression you would like to use. Made his own bed, made this inevitable. The president has given him, you might say, if it's deliberate, enough rope to hang himself. If it isn't, enough room to make a reasonable decision short of war. And what he's demonstrating is exactly the reason why he can't have nuclear weapons. He's insane. And I wish they would go back to someone whose conservative credentials is greater than mine or all of my friends, and that's Ronald Reagan, who said that under no circumstances can we allow nuclear weapons to be in the hands of an irrational person. Now, I would say, and you might disagree with this, but I would say that for all of their evil and their homicidal tendencies, both Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, oh my goodness, they could be as evil as the Ayatollah, but they're not irrational. I do not believe that Vladimir Putin thinks he's going to go to heaven and get 72 versions, nor do I think Xi Jinping does. I'm not so sure about the Ayatollah. And that's what Ronald Reagan meant by if nuclear weapons end up in the hands of an irrational person, it's got to be dealt with immediately. So I implore those of you who are Trump supporters that this civil civil war debate that we're having among ourselves as to whether Trump is being loyal to the America First movement, please, you're not the repository of all wisdom. The definition of America First is a complex definition. In a world that's complex, we live in an interconnected world, maybe too much so, but we do. We're trying as best we can to move in the direction of regaining our national pride, our national boundaries, our national scope of action. But we're not there right now. And our enemies are certainly not there. So if what I think is going to happen over the next 3 or 4 days happens, after we've had this internal debate, let's just be united behind our president. He's doing this with a certain degree of reluctance. I think you can see that. He's doing it after tremendous deliberation and listening to both sides extremely carefully. And he really is being put in a position where he has no other choice. If he wants to protect America against a country that in 5 or 10 years could have the capacity of destroying America. And we couldn't have, there are times when you can't pass up an opportunity. You know, the people who pass up the opportunity to invest and they say to themselves, oh, I'd have been a millionaire or a billionaire. Well, that's one thing. But if we pass up the opportunity to take apart this reign of terror now, we may not have as good an opportunity later. This is the best opportunity to destroy them that we have had. No administration has had a situation where they've been as decimated as this. And yes, Trump has a lot to do with that, with the economic sanctions that he put on them. In fact, had those continued and not been interrupted by a president who gave them billions of dollars insanely or traitorously, maybe that would have worked. This would have been necessary. But it was interrupted. And they are perilously close to having weapons of mass destruction. And this isn't a mistake like it was with Saddam Hussein. Indeed, if we were going to attack someone back then, it should have been the Islamic Republic of Iran. They were much more of a threat to us than Saddam Hussein. But now they're a bigger threat. Had we attacked them then, I don't know how many Americans would now be alive, because the Quds Force sure killed an awful lot of Americans during the Iraq War, didn't they? So let's see what happens. We'll keep an eye on this for you as carefully as we can as we go through this show here in Kazakhstan. We're going to meet the president really today, right here. It's about 5 o'clock in the morning, and it's perfectly light out. You can't believe how light it is out. Maybe I'll turn this camera around for a moment and let you see what it looks like out there. It's really quite something. It really is quite something out there. But in any event, we're going to take a short break, and we will be right back. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month.
Wow.
Including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
And we're back. Welcome back to America's Mayor Live with America's Mayor. Ted Goodman just saying hi, coming to you live from Denver, Colorado.
You're in Denver, and I'm in the other side of the world, in Kazakhstan.
Quite literally. Quite
you know,
literally.
it's very interesting. Being here in Kazakhstan is a country that probably of the countries that end in stan, right, is by far the most successful. It has an enormous deposit of oil and natural gas, and also some of the minerals that we are so anxious to put our hands on. And they are they're neutral. They may be slightly pro-Russian, but more so as against China. They're natural long-term enemies of the Chinese. And their relationship in the United States has, over the course of years, certainly even under their former strongman, Nazarbayev, very balanced toward the United States. American oil companies operate here peacefully without any problem. There is no terrorism in this country to speak of. It's never been the home of terrorist cells like Bosnia-Herzegovina, for example. And they maintain as close as possible to an equal relationship between the United States and Russia. And as I said, the situation with China is more difficult. In fact, Xi Jinping was here just 2 days ago to deliver a huge amount of money to them, really to buy their goodwill, because with Iran possibly out of the picture, he's going to be begging for oil pretty soon. And Russia is going to have to charge him a fortune, even though Russia owes them a lot of money. So I don't know how much money it was that he put in here, but he came bringing a great deal of money. However, this country did criticize, if not condemn, Russia when they invaded Ukraine. So you can see, although they maintain a relationship with Russia, they have a lot more independence from Russia than you would otherwise think. This was also true during the Soviet days. And the reason for that is because they're rich. Because they are endowed with an enormous amount of oil and gas extending right through the middle of the country. They probably haven't explored 2/3 of it, and still they're a very rich country, and they're a country worth doing business with. They're a country, even though they're doing business with Russia, they're a country worth doing business with because you get a good sense from them of what's going on in Russia. And it's also part of what is annoying me about our isolationist friends. You have got to know what's going on in the world. Otherwise, you're going to wake up one day and the North Koreans are going to put a bomb on our head.
That's right,
I mean,
Mayor.
we
And
just
you made
can't-
such a
Greg,
no. That's right, Mayor. And you made such a good point. First of all, when you hearken back to the isolationism of the 1700s and just the great strategic advantage, and we still have that advantage, right, of having the oceans. And then something else you've alluded to is just the oversimplified view, right? The idea that the stance of just we're not going to get involved in foreign entanglements, as if, okay, if we're not going to get involved, that the world's just going to, everyone's just going to, stick to their own. It's just so oversimplified. So that for that to be the response of even a lot of people on our side of the aisle, right, Mayor, that are now so opposed to this, I don't know if they're gaslighting on purpose or if they just don't understand. But this idea that this is automatically going to lead to World War III or somehow this is similar to the Iraq invasion of 2003. What again? And we talked about this last night. But what would be your message to those people?
I think you have to look at the complexity of the world and say that there might have been a time when you could have had Fortress America, and we would be very secure by having a massive defense system here in the United States, and nobody could touch us or bother us. However, with the complexity of new weapons, artificial intelligence, we're not Fortress America. We can be penetrated. And now after what Biden did to us, I mean, even before we had an influx of 12 to 20 million, who knows what, invade us, we were vulnerable to the worst terrorist attack in our history way back in 2001. They were able to get in and do that. So we're not invulnerable any longer. And given the penetration they've now been allowed, an attack like September 11 might be nothing compared to what they could do now. You look at what Ukraine was able to do with very inexpensive drones in Russia by penetrating Russia and penetrating 3,000 miles into Russia, setting up clandestine headquarters, and then taking a relatively inexpensive drone and sending it 4 miles and blowing up a military installation. Now, we made that real easy for the last 8 years with Pinhead. They could have been carrying drones in left and right. How the hell would we have known? Just as many drones could have come in as fentanyl. And just as many terrorists could have come in as Transdaragua. We wouldn't know the difference. Most of them weren't checked. The ones who were checked, we didn't get much of a check because the countries that send these people to us don't give us criminal records. And finally, a whole bunch of them got in, millions, without anybody seeing it. So we can make believe we're Fortress America, but we're a fort that's been invaded by a lot more than a Trojan horse. We got massive Trojan horses in every American city. And we want to say America first, and we're not going to have anything to do with foreign affairs, and it's their problem. It's Israel's problem. And also, how do you avoid? They're constantly reminding us that they want to kill us every time they talk about killing Israel. Death to America, death to Israel, death to America. And it's not as if they haven't killed us. It's not as if, they just say it and they haven't killed us. They came here and killed us. The Quds Force killed us. I mean, we've lost a lot of Americans to Islamic extremism. So you may want to isolate yourself from it, but it's a horribly irresponsible thing to do for your people. So I just don't think this world gives mature people concerned about the protection of themselves, their families, and others room to be isolationists without creating mass destruction. So I know I respect these people very much, but this isolationist position may have made sense a long, long time ago when the world was harder to navigate and the instruments of war were much simpler. Now it's almost a ridiculous. I mean, it's almost ignorant to say that. It's certainly irresponsible. And I think the president has been delayed a bit in his decision making here as a result of their lobbying him. I don't think he is now, but I think he has been. And it's not really his natural inclination. He's much more of a realist than that. So I think we'll be on target pretty soon. Anything else, Ted? How's Kristi Noem doing? Well,
that's right, Mayor. What we're hearing with Secretary Noem is that she had an allergic reaction. We're seeing what else we have on her. She was hospitalized just hours ago. Officials confirming that it was in response to an allergic reaction. She was transported to the hospital out of an abundance of caution.
We think that's pretty solid. I mean, I'm not saying that they would do that, but sometimes things are muted when they first describe something like that. I'm just afraid it might be worse.
Right. So
no indication of that, right?
Well, Trisha's a friend of the show. We've had her on, but of course, that's all we know at this time is what they're telling us, and that is that the secretary was hospitalized just hours ago for an allergic reaction, but we do not know at this point. At least officials aren't saying the allergic reaction that she had.
Okay, well, keep on top of things. I am far away.
Of course, we're staying on top of that.
But the internet puts you right there, right?
That's right, Mayor. And of course, the president has convened his Situation Room meeting at the White House. That happening this evening. And we know that the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem is now being closed for the rest of the week. That coming in, and Iran is now preparing for possible strikes on U.S. bases. This is according to reports from the New York Times. Additionally, the IDF is warning residents in Tehran to evacuate ahead of attacks. They're actually being specific to the districts and locations and telling the people of Tehran to evacuate, anticipating that these strikes will hit.
Well, they did put out an announcement that there were massive attacks on Tehran for the first time, directed at Tehran, not specific targets there. And since we do know where the Ayatollah is, I wonder what that means, because he's in Tehran. We'll have to see what happens when they're concluded. I did see that Iran has. We've observed Iran pointing weapons toward our bases. Would they be foolish enough to make Trump's decision for him?
Well, that's right, Mayor. And this is the New York Times is reporting that the Iranian military is planning these possible attacks if the U.S. joins Israel as it continues to launch strikes deep into Iran.
That makes more sense, right? That makes more sense that if we go ahead and take out Fordo, they will attack us. Of course, then all they do is ensure our continued involvement in it. because given this pressure, this isolationist pressure, the president may just take out Fordo and leave Israel to its own devices. Or he may go all in. Sounds more like he'll go all in if he does.
Right.
Just
so this
to get
appears,
it over with.
So this does appear to be an effort by Iran, or, to what degree this will have any effect. By putting this out there, it also gives another point for the anti-war wing of the right to point to in order to keep us from a deeper engagement, right? So Iran might be doing this thinking, look, obviously this is something we would have to respond to. However, maybe we can keep the United States from deeper involvement by making this threat, trying to play on the emotions of current members, including big voices on today's right, who are concerned about deeper American involvement.
Our friend Steve Bannon, right? Tucker Carlson is sort of the voice of the movement. Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Right.
These are all very, very strong Trump supporters and very solid people.
And it's
Great.
Oh, Mayor, I was just going to add that some of these people are obviously good friends of yours, and it's okay to have disagreements, right? That's part of
course,
having public discourse and making decisions. I just wish some folks, and I'm not accusing everyone of this, I wish they were a little bit more realistic in terms of how they talk about Iran's capabilities, right? I mean, we saw how fast Assad fell in Syria. Assad made Obama look like a fool, and Obama made Assad look strong, right? In Syria.
Yeah, of course he did. Yeah.
Meanwhile, he fell within days, and we see
it's hard for me to escape their constant threats to kill us, and the fact that they have killed us. I mean, there are two things here. Iran, for 44 years, has been threatening to kill us. Iran, for 44 years, has killed many Americans. How much longer do we let them do that? To the point of getting an atomic weapon? I mean, I have great respect for them, but I don't get it. I do not get it. I just have more respect for my own ability to reason than theirs. There's something missing. It almost reminds me of the left-wingers who live in an ivory tower. They're living in a world that doesn't exist.
Right.
I don't know how you could say that we are isolated from the threat of Iran when they levy that threat every day and have followed through on it any number of times. We're just going to wait until they become so powerful they can use an atomic bomb. I mean, that's. I hate to say this because this is used against them in an unfair way, but that's exactly the premise of the first America First movement. It said that Hitler wasn't a threat to the United States, and Churchill was the major opponent of that. I mean, who won that debate? So, I do think it may have slowed the president down in his decision making. I hope it doesn't slow him down in his execution, because if we're going to do this, we should do it massively and quickly. We should get this over with very quickly. And I think we are. I think if we hit Fordo, we're hitting them and ending them. I don't think we're going to want anything left over.
Well, that's right, Mayor. And of course, a new credible public opinion poll shows that even Iranian citizens overwhelmingly reject the current regime and want a democrat system of government. Additionally, Mayor, we know, of course, those that have been longtime viewers of the show understand that there are opposition groups prepared to stand in, at least for an interim period of time, to ensure that this process can play out.
No, they've been working on this for 20 years, and it would be, I would say it would be about as easy a transition as we'd ever have. And in many ways, part of the reason why people worry is the situation in Iraq, where the war wasn't a problem, but the occupation was a terrible problem. The war we got over with in record time. Then the occupation became monstrous. Here, we wouldn't have to do an occupation. The Iranian people are ready, with the MEK and the National Council for Organizations, for Dissident Organizations, and several others. They're ready to install an interim government, have an interim constitution, and
right.
if God wills it, to have an election before the end of the year. And also to immediately dedicate themselves non-nuclear, women's rights, freedom of religion, all things that theoretically the Shah was moving them to. At the same time, he was stealing them blind and killing them left and right. The absurd thing is his son wanting to return. And I've never seen a country shed off one dictator to bring back another one. I mean, it makes no sense. His father was a cruel, vicious, evil, crooked man. And in the name of his father, he's done nothing. There's nothing he's ever done that qualifies him independently for it, except he's inherited the wealth that the Shah stole from the people of Iran, largely by killing them. Wow. That'd be a terrible move. And we have some American jackasses who buy that.
That's right. There's a good number in America that point to the Shah, the son of the Shah, as the future for the Iranian people. Which
that wouldn't be much of a future. You'd have a revolution in 3 weeks.
Well, that's right. Not only would I don't think either of us see a situation where he would even be able to take control or keep it for any extended amount of time. But like you said, Mayor, if he were to stay, it would be because he would be making some sort of deal with the military and other powers that be, and he would. There's no outcome that I see where this guy comes back there and leads this country. So the question is, Mayor, and that's a legitimate question, right? In the absence of the Ayatollah, we don't necessarily want to see a power vacuum. But what would be your response to those that say, "Hey, without a concrete plan or follow up here, an unstable a country with a power vacuum is more dangerous than a country with the current status quo"?
Well, I would go back to the Ayatollah, who says that he wants to eliminate the MEK because they're the only organization that has the capacity to take over from him. I think the Ayatollah is correct.
Absolutely, and
the old tyrant reads the tea leaves correctly.
And of course, MEK, they've been so effective in getting information out on the Iranian nuclear program,
right up to the last minute.
Right up until the days before. I was talking to you, and we were helping get out some information on that site, and lo and behold, just days later, the strikes began. But that's a very real question that I don't think we have an answer to, Mayor. What happens? I mean, this week, look, we're as close. Do you believe we're as close to regime change as we've ever been
100%,
since '79? Yeah. And so this is a very real question. It's going from the realm of the hypothetical into reality. What happens if, in fact, the Ayatollah is incapacitated one way or another?
I would say that we should do everything we can to expedite getting in the rest of the organized dissidents so that they can talk it out and put something together. They already have people in Iran. They
That's
just
right.
have to get a few more in. And they have told us for a very long time that they don't need American troops.
That's
If
right.
the Ayatollah is overthrown, they'll be able to put together an interim government because
course
there will be a great deal of happiness should that come about. It won't be as it is in some of these other countries, a mixed occasion. We'll have to see. It's a lot better than what we have right now. You actually could not get worse than the Ayatollah. Saddam Hussein wasn't worse. I mean, none of them were. He was the worst. And,
That's right,
and is the worst.
That's right, Mayor. And it's worth reminding folks, of course, MEK, the NCRI, they do have people on the ground in Tehran, in Iran, prepared to step in. And as they've said, just for an interim level, right, to ensure.
How do you think Israel knows? How do you think Israel knows how to do precision bombing? As General Keane pointed out the other day, the Mossad is the very, very best at working with dissident groups. Their relationship with MEK has been at least 27, 28 years old, going back to the original discovery of nuclear facilities at Natanz. And so they're quite prepared for it. You know, tomorrow night, Ted, while I'm messing around Kazakhstan, see if you can get a couple of their people, like Senator Torricelli, that'll come on.
Well, we'll get them. So is that your way of telling us you won't be on tomorrow?
No, I think I'll be on tomorrow. I think I'll be on tomorrorow.
So
I think the difficult night for me might be Thursday. We'll have to see. But tomorrow night I'll be available.
Okay, so
let's see if we can get them on, though. I'd like to talk to them.
Well, that's right, and we've reached out to both of them this evening. We'll see if we get either of them on. We have some really good people, and of course, MEK, as the mayor said, they have people inside Iran prepared to step in for an interim level, and they've made these promises. We know they've been loyal and partners of integrity for a number of organizations and countries around the world in exposing this Iranian regime, and that they're dedicated to a democrat future, of course, and kind of serving in as in an interim period to get to this point. And these are Iranians. So this is Iran. This is empowering the Iranian people to make to create their own future free from this tyrannical regime, which again doesn't just pose a threat, right? This would be a whole different discussion if it was a tyrannical regime, that's hurting its own people. They pose a threat to the entire world. They, of course, pose an immediate threat to Israel, but also to the United States, as the mayor said. I mean, what do they constantly chant? Death to America. What are we supposed to do? Just ignore that? And, they try to explain it and this and that. Well, look, they don't need to explain it to us, right? We see it and we hear it. It's pretty self-explanatory. But all these experts, right? They get on TV and they tell, well, this is something they've been chanting, and
they've been doing also.
Yeah. Oh, that's killing. They're the number one killer of American forces.
Maybe I feel more personally about this if they tried to kill me twice.
Well, you, the president, and they're likely responsible for more American deaths in Iraq than anybody in Iraq. Right. And
I would say so. I mean, it is beyond foolishness and responsibility to ignore them, and it shouldn't be done. Anything else we should be brought up to date on, Ted, going on in the U.S.?
Well, here in the United States, of course, as we just mentioned, Secretary Noem has been hospitalized. What we're reading is that it was just out of the abundance of caution, and that we expect her to be discharged shortly. Of course, in Minnesota, we're following the shooting there. Of course, and that arrest. More details coming out on the suspect. Again, he visited a number of homes of local officials. Was able, unfortunately, killed the former speaker of the state house and her husband. But the suspected killer, was apprehended and is in custody, ending a two-day manhunt in Minnesota.
Well, thank God. I mean, that was just a horrible thing, and the great beautiful bill is moving along in the Senate. Does it look any more promising?
So that's Senate Republicans are a little bit concerned, especially some of these members who represent rural hospitals, who they say could be impacted heavily by how the bill reads today. Now, the bill it's being described as moving along right through the Senate, through committees. The Senate Finance Committee unveiled its portion, but Senate Republicans meeting behind closed doors are trying to hash out some differences. A number of members are upset over provisions that they hoped would have been taken out in order to protect these rural hospitals. So what we're seeing is some backdoor negotiations, but
just helping rural hospitals can't be that expensive. Rural hospitals are hardly the big money problem. It's gigantic.
Medicaid, yeah, they want to change the Medicaid provider tax rate.
Right. Well, let's see what happens.
What they want to do is a vast departure of what the House gave them, folks. This is it's changed. It's very like wonky stuff. So if you want to read up on the details, I'd encourage you to, because this is something to keep an eye on. Because right now it's hearing about it right in the back rooms, but if this doesn't get resolved, we'll see it come out right as we start to see public pressure for specific positions.
Well, I'm going to take a break, make one last check of Israel, and then we'll sign off. Okay? Let's take a short break, and we'll check on Israel and Iran and the United States, and then we'll sign off for today.
Mayor, what time is it there?
It's 6 o'clock in the morning.
6 in the morning. What, we've been up for how many hours now? Just before the show, even preparing.
Oh my goodness, I don't know. I stopped thinking about it.
And then he had a whole day of business, and he's got more.
Yeah, I'm meeting with the president at 11, so I'll get a little.
Yeah. Okay, we'll be right back.
Okay. All right. U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
And we're back, Mayor. So I'm going to sign off and let you take everybody out. But of course,
it sounds like the as of 16 minutes ago, Israel was still bombing Tehran. There's no list yet of casualties or how much damage was done. It looks like a pretty massive attack by Israel on Tehran. The biggest attack they've made on Tehran. Although it's not the entire city. It looks like, again, it's specific areas that Iran claimed that it targeted air bases in Israel today, although they hit none. Israel did two, possibly three waves of attack with the emphasis on Tehran. And there also was Israel made attacks in Gaza to keep them under control. And the G7 voiced support for Israel and for a broader de-escalation of hostilities in the Middle East. So right now, there doesn't seem to be any sign of a massive American attack, except for the rumors. And I wouldn't expect that there would be a warning of it. It would seem to me that's just going to happen, and then we'll know about it. So we'll sign off for now, and we'll be back with you as soon as something happens, and certainly by 7:00 tomorrow night on both X and on Mike Lindell's TV, and then we'll be here on X at 8:00 tomorrow night. And thank you very, very much for joining us, and pray for our allies, our faithful, good friends, the Israelis, and for the Jewish people, and pray for the people of Iran too, so they'll be delivered from this 45-year nightmare, and pray for the people of Ukraine as well, and of course for us, the American people. God willing, we're doing your will and trying to both save ourselves and so many other innocent people from the devastation of nuclear war, should it be put in the hands of a maniac, and give our president the strength and the wisdom to guide us as effectively as he's been doing. So again, God bless America.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England.
He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given